On the screen, let's give him a warm welcome to our CEO, Scott Newberry.
Well, thank you very much, Carl, for all those kind words. Can you guys hear me here? Carl, can you let me know if you can hear me?
I can hear you, yes, Scott.
Thank you very much. And you see the presentation on the screen I today?
Yes.
Okay, well, I find it ironic that the guy that's welcoming you guys back to the first annual meeting we've had in 3 years in person isn't there in person. I apologize for that. I was there yesterday afternoon going through this presentation, Nick and the IT crew making sure everything worked, and once I got home I started feeling pretty bad. And the way things are going right now, I think you guys would probably rather not see me doing there rather than here for the last 12 hours, so I think the best way to do this is remotely today. And let's see if we can advance this slide. And of course, technology is not going to work when we need it to. So let me real quick, if I can figure this out. I'm going to go ahead and click these slides for me, so Nikki, you will go to the next slide, please. Which now I can't see at all. So anyway, when we were gearing up for the 2020 annual meeting, as well, where the world essentially shut down. Schools were closed, hotels couldn't accept guests, the roadblock, went up the county line, and lots of restaurants and tourist-related commercial enterprise were forced to close. But hopefully what you're seeing on the screen there is some photos of our employees, and it basically says that we could not close down, and that we did not close down. And I thought what I would do today is kind of go through what we've been working on over the past 3 years since we were there with you guys last in person in 2019, and talk about some projects we've worked on from then until today. So if Nikki, you can get the FEMA slide up, that would be great. Back in 2019, I talked quite a bit about FEMA and our efforts to get money reimbursed from them for the costs we incurred in Hurricane Irma. We spent about $20 million restoring our system after Irma. And by the time the 2019 meeting came around, we hadn't received any reimbursement from that at all. And in fact, it would be at least until 2021 before we received just about all of the money that we thought we should be receiving from FEMA for that. As you can see, hopefully, ultimately, we received about $17 million of the $20 million we spent. And that's pretty typical recovery percentage there. FEMA typically reimburses somewhere between 75 and 85% of eligible costs. So ultimately, it was a struggle, but we were able to get what we thought was the proper amount of reimbursement from FEMA. Nikki, if you can get to the base camp now, that would be great. One of the major issues we had related to Irma was our base camps. I think on the screen you should see our automated base camp. We had one just about exactly like that down in Marathon. Both camps could house and take care of 150 employees, basically contract crews we had hired to come down and help us, and serve at least 200 meals at a time. Typically a hot breakfast and a hot dinner, and guys get a backpack lunch that they got with them in the field. We spent about $4.4 million altogether on those two base camps, and after we submitted a request for reimbursement about a year after that, FEMA disallowed the total cost. They said they were not going to reimburse any money for either one of those camps. And in their opinion, they didn't feel that they were necessary. They said they thought they may have been underutilized, even though they were overutilized. They didn't really agree with the cost we paid for them, and they said that we didn't properly procure those sites. For their decision, they denied that appeal a few months later. At that point, we had two opportunities. One, we could do one final appeal to FEMA headquarters in Washington, D.C., and based on our track record with FEMA to that point, we chose the other option, which was to submit to binding arbitration. So we selected that option. It was probably a 6, 8, 9 month process to get to arbitration, but ultimately, I think in September of 2020, that arbitration hearing was held. It lasted 2 days, and once that concluded, the 3-judge panel took about 4 months to make their decision, but ultimately they decided in our favor, and they awarded us $3.7 million of the $4.4 million costs we incurred for those base camps. So we felt like we were very everything that we did. They found no fault with anything that FKEC did in acquiring those base camps. So if we can move now to the next set of slides, I think it says FEMA pros and cons. While we struggle with FEMA reimbursement, we were very successful with a FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, which is a program FEMA has that if a natural disaster hits an area, they make money and funds available, grant funds available for projects that would could be undertaken to lessen further damage in a hurricane in the future or eliminate that kind of damage. So we decided to apply for some project under that program, and we're successful in securing about $20 million in FEMA grants. These aren't loans, these are grants towards 3 projects. Nikki, if you go ahead and put the Galvanic protection project first there. Should be a couple slides there. This is the first project we undertook. It's a galvanic protection program. And basically what we did was apply concrete life jackets to about 114 water-based transmission structures. These are the last transmission structures we had in the system that had not had these placed on yet. Project cost was $11 million. FEMA paid 7.8 of that. This project is actually complete. We started it during the pandemic and completed it during the pandemic. We completed that in December of 2021. And basically you see that 114 foundations have been reinforced, and those foundations now stop further corrosion falling. And they also strengthen the foundations and poles, making them more hurricane resistant. So if you move to the COT slide, Nikki, good. This slide you see a CO speech transmission line relocation. This project may start towards the end of this year. It's been approved by FEMA. We have a contractor in place. We're in the material of the contract, in the material acquisition phase of that right now. And you can see what we're looking to do is move this section of transmission line from CO's beach right along the beach area, just across the highway into the median or the right-of-way on the other side of the highway there. There's a yellow line should be on the slide, kind of indicates where those poles are going to be located to. If you see, Nikki, if you wanted to go ahead and advance that slide one more to the aerial, that'd be good, the drone. So this is an overhead drone shot of the section line we're wanting to relocate. One of the issues that we had immediately after Irma was, if I was there with my clicker, I could show you the exact pole, but I think this footage will stop in a second. You'll see a couple of circles there, but that transmission structure right after Irma started leaning heavily in towards US 1. It was getting close to basically falling over. You don't want to lose a transmission structure like that on a radial line. It's the only feed. So basically, if that pole had fallen over, there would have been about 80,000 counts, ours and all of Key's energy counts, basically everybody from Islamorada down through, including Key West, out of power. For probably an extended period of time, transmission structures aren't easy to repair like that. So we did some emergency work on that. I got some heavy equipment and straightened the pole back up and put some temporary guide wires on it that you can see going out into the ocean there. The only thing holding that pole up that we could find was a rock about the size of a bowling ball that was wedged down between the butt of the pole and the highway there. So, saved by a rock. Nikki, if you go on, move on to the next slide again, the self-supporting transmission poles. This one, I think we're looking at to replace about 11 poles. I don't have the numbers here with me. I think this job was about $6 million or $6.5 million, and FEMA's going to reimburse about 5 of that, if I remember right. What we want to do here is replace all of heavily guided transmission poles with self-supporting poles. And Nikki, if you can advance to the Robin slide, that'd be great. This is an example of a pole we were looking to change out. You can see it's a tall steel structure, but it has a whole lot of guy support with it. If we were to have another major hurricane and those guide wires were to be broken and damaged in some way, it's quite possible that transmission pole could basically fall over into the water. Not a good deal. In the background, if you look hard in the background, you'll see a steel pole kind of in the distance there. Nikki, if you want to move over to the next slide. This one's already been complete. You can see the concrete transmission pole on the right. It has all kind of guy wire going down the highway. It's kind of hard to tell, but there's about 200 feet of guy wire that parallel the bridge there too. So that pole and all those guy wires was replaced with that tall steel transmission structure there. Has a very solid foundation to it, and it is now complete. And that structure holding all those conductors by itself. All right, so Nikki, you can advance from there. What else was going on? Well, we were still running utility while we were working on all these FEMA projects. As you see here, we had record kilowatt hour sales in 2020 and 2021, which was kind of an odd thing. We expected to go backwards for those years, primarily because of the pandemic. You know, in 2020, a lot of commercial load was out of service. Hotels couldn't accept guests, a lot of restaurants shut down. And we couldn't quite figure out why with so much commercial load out of, basically out of service, we were seeing increasing sales every month. And ultimately, we know that about half the houses in Keys are not occupied for full time. They're second homes for people that live elsewhere full time. And we finally figured out that basically what they were doing was riding out the pandemic down here in the Keys. A much better place to do it than, say, Pittsburgh or Chicago or someplace like that, I guess. So they chose to ride that out down here. And that trend continued into 2021 as well. So Nikki, if you want to go to reliability. You see that remained very good during the pandemic as well. The last 4 or 5 years, we've been right around 30 minutes out, plus or minus a little bit. Our goal is 60 minutes per year, so we're well above that goal. And you can see what the state co-op average is, as well as the national co-op average. We're way below those. 2021, if you look at it, it looks like we had a little bit worse year than we had the past 3, but basically that was because a couple of young guys early on a Sunday morning on Bourbon Drive, around here at Harris Park area, decided to have a drag race down Bourbon Drive, and they weren't nearly as good drivers as they thought they were. They ran into one of our primary distribution poles serving that entire area, and knocked it out of service for 4 or 5 hours. So that little drag race wreck cost us about 8 minutes in system average outage time for the year. Without those guys doing that, we would have been back towards our more usual 30 minutes out. I guess we can move on to the next slide, Nikki. We're able to maintain good outage numbers because we work to make repairs before equipment could fail and lead to outages. And one of the major projects, and it was one that caused some consternation for a lot of people that had to drive up and down on US 1 between Island Ride and Marathon. But we replaced 1,416 transmission insulators on 472 transmission poles. Those poles are located mostly along US 1, where there's only a 2-lane road in most spots. There's very little room to get off the road, so in a lot of cases on these poles we had to take lane closures, led to some traffic backups. We worked real hard at the start of this project to put things in place to kind of minimize those delays, and things got better 2 or 3 months after we got rolling on it. But we had questions on why didn't you do it during off-season and stuff like that, or at night. Basically, this is it was a 14 to 16 month project. There's no way to do it the other way. And you don't work 38,000 volt transmission hot at night. It's too to do. So we managed to get the job done, and I think Nikki, if you go to the next page there, you can see not only did we work on the highway there, but one of the interesting aspects of this job was all the transmission structures that were in the water. Those insulators were changed via helicopter, and you should be able to see this guy getting delivered to his office for the day on the long line there. It's kind of an interesting way to go to work. I don't know that I'd like to do that every day when all that conductor around me is energized at 138,000 volts. But these guys are good, and it's very precise work, and they know what they're doing there. And not only do the guys get delivered to poles, I think you should be maybe seeing some video now of the helicopter delivering the insulator there as well. It may seem like an expensive way to do the work, but actually using that helicopter there is more efficient, cost effective than loading 3 or 4 very large bucket trucks on 3 or 4 very large barges. That is very, very expensive. So when we're working water like that, it's a little more cost effective and efficient to use that helicopter. If you can go to the conductor slide, Nikki. One of the, I guess, unexpected benefits that came out of this job, but we didn't expect to find this, but if you can see that transmission conductor on the screen, you see how severely eroded it is. Those pieces of conductor were basically where the insulator attached to the transmission line. And there's like a rubber grommet that line sits in, and a boot where it attaches to the end of the insulator. And apparently over time, salt, I guess, got into there and started really corroding that. We found, I think, around 40 areas of this. And with that kind of corrosion, that severely weakens the line. So by changing those insulators and finding this damage as well, we really were able to get some repairs made that would keep that from falling in the future wind event. We should have all those repairs complete, I think, in just the next few weeks. We've been working on them the past couple of months. So we've talked a lot about the transmission system so far, so Nikki will move to the next slide. I think that is the slide that we're talking about. A big focus lately has been replacing an old copper conductor with new aluminum conductor. Copper, as it stays in place over a number of years, gets really brittle and it's easy to break. So we've taken under a big project on the distribution side to try and get all of that out of our system. You see we've replaced about 50 miles of that already. And another thing that we've been doing, and the contractors do while they're replacing this conductor, if they see any other distribution devices in the area that need to be fixed, repair or replace those as well. Whether it's a transformer that looks like it's reached the end of its life, distribution insulator flashed over or something like that. So again, a lot of work here to try and prevent outages before they have a chance to occur. And finally, Nikki, I think we're at the Marathon building. One piece of advice, don't undertake a large construction project like this in the middle of a pandemic. This became very challenging to do during that time. I think we built the Cabinet Operations Center from the ground up in less time than it took us to add 4,200 square feet to this building, as well as upgrade a lot of the existing part of that building. But if we're on the right slide, you should see the building as it looked before we started this project. The upper right section of that, you should be able to see a yellow line. That's where the 4,200 square foot addition was added. And then down the bottom picture there is how that entire building looks today. And if Nikki, you want to go to the video of that, that'd be great. So basically, this is panning from the original part of the building all the way down, and including the addition that we put onto it. I took this project because Irma pointed out quite a few weaknesses in the existing building. It was about 25 years old, I think, at the time when we started this. It got bad, or pretty bad in Irma, and it just did not perform as well as our Cabinet Operations Center did, which was built specifically to be fully Cat 5 rated. So what we did with this building was not only add 4,200 square feet of new stuff to it, but we also took the opportunity to do a lot of upgrades to the existing part of the building, improve the internal security of it for the safety of our employees, and work on the attractiveness of it as well. Basically, we wanted this building now to have the same capabilities as the Cabinet Operations Center when we got it done. Okay, Nikki, this is kind of the harder part, I guess. If you're going to the entry of the building there, you should see the board there in front of the building, and a nice picture, hopefully, of Mr. Cudo there. Once we got this completed, it was decided that this would now be the Marathon Operations Center, Michael H. Cudo Emergency Operations Annex. So you heard earlier, Mike is a 29-year veteran of our board, the longest serving board member. He's Mr. Marathon, and I think very, very deserving of this honor. All right, hopefully we're kind of going through the video of the building now. This is kind of hard it's a 3-minute video and I don't have it all memorized, but you should see us walking into the assembly area there. And that is a training and dining facility. During day-to-day work, that's where we'll have safety meetings, employee training, that sort of thing. It has the latest, greatest IT features incorporated into it. But in storm situations, that will be where we'll feed 80 to 100 line crew at a time. And hopefully we're moving now into the kitchen facility there. We also wanted to add a commercial style kitchen into this. We have that same feature in the Tapping Operations Center, and it was really, really beneficial to us when Irma hit. The first 2 or 3 days, actually, those employees, those of us who hunkered down in the Operations Center for Irma, used that our kitchen facility there for 3 or 4 days before Irma hit. And then we were able to feed all the line guys and tree crew guys who were coming in from the outside as they showed up for a couple of days while we got the base camp set up. So we now have that same capability down there in Marathon. And in fact, this one's a little bit better because we work with base camp providers to make sure that if we need to use this kitchen to cook for 200 people, that we can do that, and the base camp providers won't have to bring their own kitchen facilities with them. So we will save that cost in the future by they'll provide the chefs, they'll provide the food, we'll provide the facility to cook out of. And so with that, that's I think pretty much all I recall. A little bit hard to do this whole presentation from memory, but I think I managed to get it done. So to wrap this up, I really like to thank the directors for their patience and their guidance over the past 3 years. Our president alluded to what a strange and stressful time we all lived through, and trying to keep an electric utility running during that time is not an easy thing either. And I really would like to thank the employees again. Day by day, over the past 3 years, things changed, rules changed, advice changed, but they hung in there with us, and they kept on, kept keeping on, doing what they do every day to keep the lights on for you guys. I really, really appreciate all they do for us, and I'm really sorry I wasn't there to do this in person today. Hopefully, I'll be there to do it in person next year. And thank you all for being there, and look forward to seeing you anytime in the future. Thanks.